Welcome to Fumaça. Today, we have as a guest Gaby Lasky, Israeli human rights attorney and member of the Tel Aviv Jaffa City Council. She is also the lawyer of Ahed Tamimi and her mother, Tamimi, both Palestinians. This interview was recorded in June.
You've been working on the case of Ahed Tamimi, a Palestinian girl, 16 years old, arrested during the night of the 19th of December 2017. Can you explain what happened in that day?
Well, actually, the day she was arrested, it's not the day that that the soldiers were in her house, in her backyard, and several minutes before the incident that we can see in the video, her 15-year-old cousin was shot in the head, and he was turned to the hospital in a state of coma. So
Mustafa Tamimi.
Yes.
That? Mm-hmm.
So she was very disturbed regarding that, and taking also into consideration that she's a second generation living under occupation, and that her land was stolen by a settler. So at that moment, while the soldiers were in her backyard, she asked them to go out, and she tried to push them away from her house using her hands, her bare hands, while the soldiers were heavily armed. And this scene was in Facebook Live by her mother. And that same day, it was the 15th of December, the soldiers didn't do anything regarding the incident. They didn't even write a report on it, and she wasn't arrested. Only after the video went viral and members of parliament in Israel saw it, they started to say that she has to be arrested and taken to prison for the rest of her life. And so that's when the army decided to arrest her in the middle of the night, taken from her home. She was taken by the police and the army without summoning her before that, and then she was taken to interrogation.
The Israeli Ministry of Education, I think you were mentioning that, Naftali Bennett said the women seen assaulting Israeli soldiers in the video should finish their lives in jail. Is that what you're mentioning?
Yes, and not only him, also the Minister of Defense reacted to the video in a manner saying that she has to be incarcerated, as if we were not dealing in a state of democracy where first you have to summon someone to investigation, and then you have to decide what to do, and then you have to have a trial that has to be a fair trial. But no, the Minister of Education is already sending a 16-year-old young woman to prison for the rest of her life. You know, it's very educational.
Following Ahed's arrest, Ahed's mother, Nariman Tamimi, and her cousin, Noor Tamimi, were also arrested a few days afterwards. Manal Tamimi, Ahed's cousin, was also arrested. And then Noor and Manal were freed in January. Why were they arrested? Why were the mother and cousin of Ahed also arrested during those days following the arrest of Ahed?
Well, Noor was arrested and indicted because she also took part in the trying to get the soldiers out of the home. Actually, Noor, I was able to release her from her detention, so she didn't get, and she was indicted, but her punishment was not jail time because we were able to release her. Her mother, Nariman Tamimi, went to the police station when Nayat was arrested because there is a right for a parent to be present during an interrogation of a minor. And instead of allowing Nariman to be present at the interrogation by Tamimi, the police arrested her immediately, and she was then indicted for presenting for the video, and yeah.
So Ahed was
for incitement, yes.
Hmm. So Ahed was tried in a military legal system rather than a civil legal system. What does that mean? Can you explain?
Well, since the occupied territories are under Israeli military rule, there is no really a civil legal system there for Palestinians. So when a Palestinian is arrested, they all come in front of a military court. By as well as a settler living in the occupied territories, committing an offense in the occupied territories, he will be sent to a civil court inside of Israel.
And what's the difference? Like, what would you say is the difference between the civil court and the military court for the Palestinians? What for someone who doesn't really know what happens there? What is the difference for you as a lawyer too?
Well, first of all, we have to understand that the military court is not really a court of justice, since its sole purpose is to perpetrate occupation, because you're talking about a court of occupation. So any Palestinian that comes before a military court, they are seen as, as enemies, and not as a person that has the same rights. And so in that sense, you cannot really say that these courts are serving justice, but they're more serving the occupier and the occupation. While in a civil court, everybody comes with a baggage of rights. And if those rights are infringed in any manner, then, the trial can be postponed, or it can be, or the indictment can be erased. In Ahed's case, the fact of the matter is that if a settler would commit the same offense as Ahed was charged with, they would not come to a military court, and that in the beginning they would not even be kept in detention until the end of their trial. So there's a very big difference between the two systems.
An Israeli report from 2011 states that the military legal system has more than 99% of conviction rate, so 99.74%. Is that still true today? And what's the relevancy of that?
Well, I don't know if this exact statistic is right, but there is a very, very, very high number of convictions in the military court, and mostly because, in a sense, the trials take such a long time that and most of the persons that come to trial in the military courts are arrested until the end of their trial. So in many ways, a person prefers to end their ordeal with a plea bargain rather than stay in detention for a very long period of time that can amount a longer period of time than the punishment itself. So that is one. And secondly, since Palestinians are aware that this is not a court of justice, it is very difficult to show that you are not guilty, or that you are allowed to demonstrate in the occupied territories, or to defend your land and things like that if you're Palestinians. So since many of the Palestinians do not find this court as a court that can give them justice, they try to shorten the period of arrest for as long as possible. And secondly, since I said this is a court that perpetuates occupation, it is very, very, very difficult for a Palestinian to be found not guilty in this court.
Was that the case of Ahed? Her sentence was revealed in March this year.
In Ahed's case, in the end, we did get a plea bargain where she got 8 months of prison term, while the prosecution wanted in the beginning to keep Ahed in detention or behind bars for a period of longer than 4 years. So So taking into consideration the fact that in the Ayed's indictment there were more than 40 prosecution witnesses, her trial would have taken a very, very long time. And secondly, since there were all these statements already not already finding Ayed guilty from the beginning, we knew that we couldn't get a fair trial. Not only that, that during the trial, the judge, the military judge, decided to close doors in Ayed's trial to make it invisible for diplomats and for activists to be present in the courtroom to see what's going on, since they really wanted to hide the truth from everyone. That's why, while they decided to close doors, it was even a more difficult task to try and show what is really going on in the military courts and what is happening in Ayed's trial. And since we know that her arrest was an arrest that was almost asked for by Israeli politicians, we knew that we couldn't really find justice in the court.
And having a trial behind closed doors, is that something normal too?
Well, in Israel, minor trials are held behind closed doors because they want to protect the minor. But in the military court, that same closing doors in minor trials is in order to protect the court and not the minors. And specifically in this case, since the family, the lawyer, and Ayed herself, we were interested in open doors. So the court, while they didn't accept our plea to open doors, was protecting themselves and not protecting Ayed.
So around 300 children are at the moment imprisoned in Israel's facilities. Data from the DCI, Defense for Children International, Palestine, state that a children's right, that 26 children were put into solidarity confinement. A big majority is handcuffed or shown a paper in Hebrew to sign, blindfolded, suffer from physical violence, verbal abuse, and intimidation, or have no lawyer or family member present during the interrogation. Did Ahed suffer from any form of torture or ill treatment during the whole process?
Well, first of all, to take a minor from their bed in the middle of the night for interrogation instead of summoning them to a police station, I think that is a misuse of power in the beginning. But during her interrogation, we have videos that show that there was an interrogator that was intimidating her by saying the things regarding her looks and was sitting too close to her. There were two men in the room while she was there alone without the presence of a parent or a female. And we have all that. And not only that while she was arrested, her arrest was, she was handcuffed, of course, and then her arrest was also filmed by the police and by the army, something that is completely unusual, but is also completely illegal to do in the case of a minor.
Yeah, so reports say that the interrogator said something like, "We will take everyone if you don't cooperate." So clearly intimidating her to talk. Otherwise, they would take people from her family. Is that true?
Well, the interrogator specifically said names of members of her family, and she said that if she doesn't talk, they will arrest those members of her family, including other minors. But I have to say that Ayed was very, 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 very brave, and she didn't speak during interrogation. Although, excuse me. So during all her interrogation, she kept silent. as I told her to do as her lawyer. Since again, in this case, we couldn't really find justice, so there was no real reason to comply with their intimidation and start talking.
So last year I've been to DCI in Ramallah, and I've been told that children with 16 or 17 years old have exactly the same legal provisions as adults in Israeli law. Ahed was 16 when she was arrested. What's the consequence of that into this and other cases of children with 16 or 17 years old?
No, well, first I have to say that the military law has been changed, and now a minor, even if they're Palestinians, they are considered to be minors until they are 18. So this has been already changed, although for a very long period of time, a Palestinian minor was considered a minor and only until they were 16. But this has changed. But still, there are a lot of difference between the military law and the Israeli civilian law regarding how to treat children during interrogation and detention. And although if there are two children, two minors, an Israeli settler and a Palestinian, let's say, throwing rocks at each other in the occupied territories, both will be taken to the same police station, but their rights will be completely different. If an Israeli minor has to be taken in front of a judge in the period of 12 hours, they can keep a Palestinian minor in detention without seeing a judge for a period of 4 days. So it means that there is a difference of legal rules that bind you depending on your ethnicity, if you are Jewish, Israeli, or if you're a Palestinian. And that is completely apartheid. There's no other way to say that. If two rules apply to separate people according to their ethnicity, then it means that there is no real equality in the application of the law.
On the 6th of June, Ahed was denied an early release from prison. So a parole board decided to deny that. Why was that? You wrote on a tweet, the board stated that she holds radical ideology and is still dangerous.
That's what they wrote. That's what they believe. There was an opinion from the Israeli security services saying that she is still dangerous. That if she's released early, then she will present a problem, and other youth will come in her steps. And since she holds radical ideology, then she shouldn't be released or given parole. And that's what the parole board decided. And of course, we didn't believe that she would be granted an early release, but it is very difficult to consider a fair decision when someone living under occupation retains the ideology of ending the occupation, and it's being seen as the occupier's court as radical ideology.
Gaby Lasky, thank you so much.
Thank you.
É Apenas Fumaça is produced by Bernardo Afonso, Frederico Raposo, Maria Almeida, Pedro Miguel Santos, Pedro Zuzarte, Sofia Rocha, Tomás Pereira, Tomás Pinho, and by me, Ricardo Esteves Ribeiro. Visit fumaca.pt for new episodes and subscribe to our newsletter and wherever you get your podcasts. Até já.